I disagree with you probably on most things. I'm a psycho person who thinks about things in psycho ways. I had no idea how much power I have to just scam my fans and my viewers. Like, truly. I'm like, this is just an infinite money glitch.
Can I make a living as a creator? How can I do so without becoming Mr. Beast?
He asked me what my CPM was.
Yeah.
I had to look it up.
You've been a full-time YouTuber for how many years?
How much do you make today?
That is truly beautiful.
It's 2024. Can you still become a new YouTuber and make enough to support yourself without selling out your soul or content to the algorithm?
Meet Internet Shaquille. He quit his job 3 years ago to do YouTube full-time. And now he makes over $250,000 a year from his dedicated Patreon, ads, and selling his handmade ceramic cookware.
And he could be making 3 times more, but deliberately chooses not to protect the quality of his life. Let's find out why and how he does it. This pod is sponsored by me. I help build this cool new tool, Karat Insights. If you're a creator, Karat helps you manage your financials and compare how you're doing against peers. More on this later and link in description below. Victor, Internet Shaquille, you strike me as a very authentic creator. Do you think of your channel more as a business or more as art?
Oh, boy. I happen to have monetized something that I do for fun that is inspired by, I guess, artistic thoughts of an ideologue. And so, in a way, both. But that's probably the case with anybody who paints or make music. I went to a movie theater for the first time in like a year maybe, and the guy sitting next to me was friends of a friend, and he asked me what my CPM was. I had to look it up.
You had to look it up?
I don't know.
You've been a full-time YouTuber for how many years?
Maybe 3.
And you don't know what CPM means? That's impressive.
How much do you make today as a creator?
I looked at my QuickBooks P&L yesterday.
Yeah.
And it said 250 in gross income. And then what trickles its way down to me personally is much, much less.
Yeah. Okay. And that's combining all of your different income streams, obviously.
Right. So it's like 1, 2 for YouTube, 1, 2, 3 for Patreon. And then if I do like a brand deal for 5 or find a way to finagle 5 out, we're retiring for the rest of the month. And if something comes along after that, it's like, okay, that's fine.
So it's 10,000 of income from content though, right? And then you have this whole other business income on top of that, which you don't even count towards your goal.
You're talking about Barkley?
Yes.
If you ask me how much Barkley makes, I truly have no idea.
Quinn, I know you've done some analysis on Internet Shaquille's business numbers. What are you estimating his Barkley's revenue yearly at?
His revenue yearly, if our numbers are right, it's about $150,000 for the past 12 months.
Okay.
But monthly, it ranged from anywhere from like $5,000 to $15,000, right?
And how would you describe Barkley's for those who don't know?
Yeah, Barkley is a handmade ceramic dinnerware company based here in Tempe, Arizona. And so everything's made by hand. And it's very much like not a mass appeal product. That's something that I obviously gravitate towards as somebody who doesn't do things with a whole lot of mass appeal. I got into ceramics because up the street, there's a city center that does ceramics for very cheap. It's run by the city. There's like 3 companies, John O. Pandolfi, Heath, and if you've heard of Felton Fat or if you've heard of East Fork, then those are like the hip ones. They kind of own everything. Like if you go to a restaurant in New York and there's a handmade plate and you look under it, it's probably going to be John O. Pandolfi. Like they have cornered the market. If you as like a customer, everyday eater, just kind of want some of that restaurant flair at home, it's pretty hard to think of something that you could select outside of those major players. And I thought, why not give it a try?
Yeah. I recall you started like crafting these yourselves, but people were like, hey, I'd love one. And you're like, well, the time it takes to manually craft these relative to the cost people are going to pay, not going to make sense. Right. So you brought in friends, neighbors.
So I have a set of 12 dinner plates that I made for my family in our kitchen. And I revere those because it took all semester to do those. And if you asked me to sell them, they would cost hundreds of dollars because of how long it took. The ceramicist that I work with is much faster, has better systems in place. So yes, she makes virtually all of the ceramics now.
And that's how you get to the $40 price point versus the multiple $100.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, for a handmade piece, which is, I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
What I'm kind of loving too is like this shared spirit where you sell products, but they're not outsourced to a third-party manufacturer. You're not even sure how much you make. there feels a lot of the passion left there because these are like handmade ceramic pieces that you would make yourself that you've now brought in friends to make too. I'm fascinated by how you haven't thought about this as how do I make money? You've thought of it as like, yeah, I like want to make income, but I also want to do the things I like, but it's working.
It's more of just like, can I do this fun thing without going broke on it? The first month of selling, I messed up the shipping costs and I was selling at a slight loss. That was a whole disaster in itself. Basically, Amazon owns shipping now, which I wasn't really aware of. There was basically one option in the metropolitan Phoenix area that is not Amazon. And so I used them. We ran into a lot of trouble with order accuracy, breakage, things going out on time. And I thought, if I have to do this over Amazon, I'd sooner shut the business down because that's not really what it's about. So now it's all at the ceramicist's office, and I have paid her extra to assume those duties. And she's turned out to be much faster and more accurate. And it's not a business, it's not a company, it's just like me and her again. And so it feels really nice to give more income, send more income her way than like the people who are making things really hard for me.
So you're saying that she handles all the fulfillment?
Yes.
Okay. And you're doing that like by hand, every single one you send out like USPS or?
Yeah. Well, Amazon takes like 30% margin. So it's like I either have to be like everybody else where I charge a lot more, or just make 2% margin on everyone. And then you have to like be selling all the time. And what's the point of that? How
did you get the money to get the initial stock? You said that business people email creators and say, I want to invest in you.
Yeah.
So did you take an investment from a business person?
If you're a creator, Karat just launched this new insights tool that analyzes your socials and financials to calculate how much you're making today and how much more you could be making. You can compare your earnings to that of other creators like you and see on average how much they make and how they're making it, whether it's AdSense, brand deals, merch, or courses. For this channel, I learned compared to other podcasters of similar size, I'm lagging behind in growth rate and brand deal earnings, so I know how to improve. Try it for free via link in description below, because Karat's mission is to help handle the business side of being a creator. Now back to the podcast.
You said that business people email creators and say, I want to invest in you.
Yeah.
So did you take an investment from a business person?
So that particular one with the ceramicist, I said, I don't know what you'd like to do, what we can work out, but if you can help me like make ceramics happen, maybe we can like split the business in some way. We didn't really get far enough to get into details because it turned out that he was unable to make it happen for me.
So after that,
I paid for it myself.
You paid for it yourself? Okay. So you saved up or like in preparation for this, or?
Before I switched to YouTube full time, I saved up a year's worth of my salary at my other job. And so always been pretty cash rich business wise.
Okay.
And that's another reason why I don't really know how much I make, because I pay myself through that cash pool. And I basically I have my salary set at either 60 or 80,000. Well, it's $80,000, but 20 of that goes into a retirement fund that I set up for myself. So effectively
very
60.
responsible.
Yeah.
Oh, I love personal finance.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. That's why I'm such a big Karat head.
That's so interesting. Yeah. So there were 2 months where you made like $17,000 and $18,000. I don't remember exactly what they were.
Both of those were the times that I didn't have an ad, but I did have something to say. And so I thought, instead of doing an ad read at the end, I'll just promote Barkley. And those were like massive sales.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember like refreshing the Shopify page, like I sold $14,000 worth of merch. That's insane.
That is insane. Why not every time then?
Because I talk myself down by saying, okay, well, let's say my net margin is 20%.
Yeah.
It's suddenly not that exciting. And it's a little bit more exciting to like just take an ad deal where the margin is 100%.
Yeah. So it's fascinating because it's funny how Quinn gave you a number and then talked through a couple months where you made like a lot and you kind of knew which months they were and why. And it was from your own business as opposed to doing the brand deals.
Right.
But to your point, a lot more work and a lot lower margin.
Right. So what's 20% of 15? I went to ASU. I can't do math.
3,000.
Okay, great. So
I love how I went to Harvard. You went to ASU. Quinn beat both of us right there with the quick mental math.
Come on now, go Brewers.
Nice.
I can't justify doing that every time if I'm making 3,000 instead of 5 for a lot less work. And I also get very nervous. Like I hesitate to scale the business because of how scary it is. Like when I get a new email, I'm like, I hope somebody's not mad that their experience wasn't good. Over Christmas break this year, I was in California at a hotel on like shaky Wi-Fi, and somebody emailed me Christmas morning saying, oh, I got 4 dinner plates for my son and one of them was cracked. Can you send a new one at his address instead of the one you sent it to, because he's going back home after Christmas?
Yeah.
And I accidentally sent like 3 to his address and 4 to her address, because I kept like refreshing the page and I was doing things on my laptop, which I'm not used to, and the Wi-Fi would go out. I'm just like, I accidentally made like 8 makeup orders because I was like just so stressed out about like, man, her Christmas morning is so much sadder to be like, it's broken.
Yeah. And with your margin, you just lost hundreds of dollars there, right? Like,
Exactly.
That's insane.
Did he ever reply back and just be like, wow, like, Victor, thanks for sending me like 8 plates?
The mom responded is like, I just want to make sure that he's getting them because I've gotten like 4 boxes at this point, and I'm just like, I'm so sorry.
She's like, thank you, but this is not what I wanted.
I don't want your plates.
Yeah.
Like, please stop.
No, they're using those as dog bowls, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned that it's hard for you to scale the ceramics business because like margins are low the way you're doing it, but you don't really necessarily want to change the way you're doing it because there's certain character and a soul associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
What about, you mentioned you like doing brand deals because it's like $5K and it's 100% margin. How do you choose the brands that you work with?
90% of the time, just email me like, do you want to do this? And 70% of the times I'll just say no, thank you, because it's like a crypto fishing game, or like Raid Shadow Legends, or
Raid Shadow Legends.
I'm trying to think of some of the stranger ones. There haven't been a whole lot of strange ones. I feel like maybe the economy has dipped a little bit, so now all the like wackier businesses are maybe not so fruitful anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like one of them is like a fitness coaching app, and I start my free trial tomorrow and I get 2 weeks to decide if it's good or not.
I kind of love this concept where you end up doing brand deals, all these videos, but like, and brands, ironically, where you're just like, here's like a crypto phishing thing. I think it's a huge fucking scam, but it exists. I will donate this all to charity, but I think it's bad.
I do an April Fool's Day video every year, and for the first 2 years, I was able to do that. Because it was like Magic Spoon cereal. I'm just like, you know how much I love cereal, and because it was like it fits into the video.
Yeah.
But for the 3rd year and beyond, it hasn't worked out because people are like, we don't really want to buy an April Fool's Day ad from you.
Wait, so when you did Magic Spoon cereal, did it convert?
I don't know. I truly have no idea, and that's why I was so surprised when my own ad read for my own business did so well. Because like, oh my gosh, I've been giving these people so much traffic this whole time.
Like, wait, this moves the needle.
Yeah. They almost never share that data with me.
Yeah. I don't think they share it with anyone.
Because they're afraid if they do, you're going to use that to negotiate and price higher.
Yeah, maybe.
It's kind of fucked up.
I also wouldn't put it past a lot of these brands. The idea that they just don't even know themselves. There was a sleep aid hot chocolate, and it was definitely on the fence about like, I don't know whether to take this or not. They sent me a bunch of samples. I slept better than ever before. I heard some things about melatonin giving you nightmares. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to do the ad deal. They said, hey, that went pretty well. How about we set up an affiliate deal where you talk about us more often? And this was my first foray into affiliate marketing. And they said, for every sign up, we'll give you $100 because our what is it? LTV?
LTV.
Yeah, long-term value. Yeah.
Is $200 per customer. So we'll give you $100. And I thought that's very strange because the product itself is $90. So I could tell you, I'll Venmo you $90 if you buy this. I'll pay for it for you, and then get $10. And then I'd scale that up en masse, and I'll just like tell everybody who watches my videos, like, hey, I'll pay for this if you just send me a Venmo request.
Infinite money machine.
Yeah. And so I thought, what if I tried this? And you know, we signed the deal, and I did like one test where I was like, told my sister, like, hey, can you just buy this real quick, and I'll Venmo you for it. And it tracked perfectly. And this was in November, and they ran a sale where everything was half off. So now I only have to give them $50. I'm like,
whoa.
And you make $100.
I'm like, this is just an infinite money glitch. The company was called Beam. So I called it the Beam scheme. And like everybody in my Discord server, I was like, let's try out a Beam scheme. And I checked the contract. My wife is a lawyer. This is not a breach of the contract. Yeah. They set it up in this way. And I thought, let's just try it. And so like 14 people in my server tried it. And their back-end analytics, they made a tracking system like that day. and it was only showing, let's say, 12 or 14.
Mhm.
I was like, this isn't tracking well. So I definitely don't want to move forward with this in a genuine way because I
Right.
don't know how much I'm making.
Yeah.
And I also don't want to move forward with it even in like the beam scheme disingenuous way because, you know, if I give 17 people or if I give 1,000 people $100 and it only tracks 800, then it's not really worth it anymore.
And you're going to have to tell them that you were, you know that these people converted because you
Right,
paid for their hot chocolate.
I love how
right?
like the
Yeah.
main point of your story was to be like companies don't have good back end tracking conversion systems, but the main takeaway I have is like you are a genius.
Yeah, I got to get this affiliate.
You're
deal.
like, wait,
Beam,
the
if you're out
affiliate
there.
pays me more than the product is cost.
Yeah.
How do we scale this? How do we make some moolah?
I think that there is an inherent sense that every creator, influencer, whatever you want to call it, faces where it's like, I had no idea how much power I have to just scam my fans and my viewers. Like, truly, influencers have an immense power to do like crypto rug pulls,
as we've
a
seen.
fake promo. Yeah. And so that's the scale that we know about. And then there's also this like smaller scale where it's just like, oh, and I could also talk about this affiliate deal where I don't disclose that. And it's just, I think that's something that you have to fight with internally. You know,
Yeah.
When did you realize for the first time, like, hey, this isn't just like a hobby where I post videos and like some people see them to like, oh, like I have influence. Like this is a business. I can sustain myself and people are listening to what I'm saying.
I agree with the conceit of that question up until the final sentence because I made a YouTube short about a pepper mill that I thought was ridiculous because it's like $200 or $300. And I thought nobody needs this. Nobody in the entire world. And they kept sending me Instagram ads. And so I thought I'm going to ruin this company's whole career. I'm going to like shut them down. And I posted about it and a bunch of people were like, that's such a stupid product. I can't believe it. And then the guy who owns the brand said, hey, I'd love to send you a free one if you give me your address. It was like our biggest day of sales ever. And so like, yes, I do have influence, but there's no way for me to predict in which way it'll
I
be.
picture someone
They didn't
sitting and
listen
be
to
like,
you.
okay, time to watch my favorite creator, Internet Shaquille, talk to me about what he has in his kitchen. Oh, he hates this pepper mill? I'm a buy it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You
That's
run
funny.
other affiliates though.
I
right?
have like 4 current affiliates. I had like 6 last week and I got mad at 2 of them.
Yeah.
Wait, why do you get mad?
I have...
All
I'm
right.
such an annoying person to work with. I'm not going to say the brand. There was a brand that had an affiliate deal with me, and I just happened to like 2 months ago try to type in the coupon code, and it didn't work. So I emailed my point of contact and said, "Hey, this doesn't work. Should it work?" And they never responded. And then I had an Instagram DM from them in my like hidden requests that I never knew about.
Yeah.
They're saying, hey, we want to help you sign up with an affiliate deal. And I messaged them back saying, I already have one. Can I talk to somebody? Basically, I got passed around like 3 times over. I was like, let's just not do this.
Yeah, you're like, this isn't worth it.
Yeah.
Wow. And what were the portions between like AdSense and like memberships?
On the money side of things, the YouTube AdSense income floats around like $1,500 to $2,000, which I think is significantly lower than most people.
A month?
Yes.
That was
Or
going to be my
28
answer
days.
too.
Right.
For you.
Okay. I think a big portion of that is that I don't have any mid-roll ads. I imagine
For
if I
sure.
had doubled the length of my videos, I would get triple the income because then I would have 3 ads instead of just 1. Either I'm lazy or I value peace above all. And it's depending on which kind of lens you're going to look at it through. This is kind of a long story, so we don't have to get into it. And it definitely
Please.
sounds like retconning, but like 10 to 12 years ago, I set like a life goal for myself, and that was to have a passive income before I had children. Oh, between then and now, I've come to not really believe in the term passive income,
Mm-hmm.
but I have achieved my goal. Like I achieved my life goal that I deliberately set out.
What a beautiful way to look at it. I feel like before I started this job, I was a full-time YouTuber, and I felt like this prison of needing to work all day because it was like money on the table. You know what I mean?
The Patreon you have is very impressive too. How did you grow that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know that it's impressive because I also don't know how it compares.
Well,
to other people.
most creators your size are much more heavily weighted on AdSense
Yeah.
and brand deals.
Really.
Yeah. The fact that you're making $3,000 a month from Patreon, right? Which is like $36,000 a year, which is like more than 10% of your gross. That's very strong.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And you're below the 50th percentile in AdSense revenue, but your overall revenue is much above that, right?
Okay.
Because you make up for it in your other
Interesting.
revenue
Yeah.
sources.
In terms of like how I feel about income sources, Patreon is my beloved.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I would be ruined. Like they are the one thing that I can depend on where I'm just like, worst case scenario, I lose everything and make $3,000 a month. That's pretty
It's
good.
not bad.
That's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
I set up a Discord server where I can talk to some of the tiers of those people every day, and that's really nice. I can get a sense of like what they do and don't care about. I can run ads by them where I'm just like, have you heard of this brand? And it's just like such a great direct thing that they've set up for me. And
Yeah.
that is like the one
Yeah.
income source that I'm most grateful for.
Well, how did you go about building it initially? And what do you offer? Because I went on there and I saw, well, my favorite tier, I think it was like your max tier. You'll send them pictures of your feet.
Yeah, like the feet pics
you can
one.
buy pictures of my feet for $99 a month.
How many people do that?
I don't believe there are any current foot patron members right now, but there have been at least 5 because they also get a special tier in the Discord server. And so people are like, hey, there's a foot guy. And they're like,
He's like, no, it wasn't for the feet. I just wanted to support Victor.
Shows up at the top too,
Yeah, it
right?
does.
Because it's like admin level.
yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
So far, only one of them has been sexually gratified by the feet pictures.
Oh,
And that was a pretty severe dynamic to navigate.
I love that you know that too.
Oh, they make it very clear. Because, a bunch of them, I'll send them, they're like, dude, you are ridiculous. And the other one's like, more. Except walk outside barefoot.
I don't know how to navigate this.
What a
from here.
unique angle to what you're doing. You're like, well, of the 5 people who've gone to feet pics, one of them really likes them.
Yeah. I've run surveys on my patrons at least twice over the years about like, do you feel like I give you an adequate amount of value? And by a wide margin, every single time, it's just like, you need to stop thinking about this. We are doing this to support you.
Yeah.
Because I worried so much about like, gosh, like you are giving me an amount of money per month that's equivalent to like a Disney Plus or a Netflix, and I really want to give you more value than that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's become clear that most people, virtually all people, do it as a means of support.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, the Discord server access is of tremendous value.
Yeah.
What do you do in the Discord?
First of all, it's not free. And I think that's huge because any free Discord server where there's like 10,000 people, it's like, this is impossible to just like spend time on. And so it's very clicky. Like it's very much like, hey, good morning, everybody. Like it's just a couple hundred people, maybe 100 online at a time. Like somebody asked a question about e-bikes today and you get like 6 people who are like, I just got done spending 6 months researching e-bikes. This is what you should get. And like, since so many of our interests overlap, you get a lot of really great value. I wish I had something like that for other YouTubers who think about that in the way that I do, but I don't. And so I'm just making that for them.
Do they feel when you look at the people in your Discord, do you think they're people you'd, 1, get along well with in real life? And 2, are they similar to you?
So first of all, a lot of them have met up with each other. They do like an annual meetup called SaltCon. The server's called the Salt Cellar. And like they meet up with each other. They'll do like a power hour together and they'll be like, can you contribute some videos? Where I'm like, hey, everybody, I haven't been able to go because my wife says it's a huge liability. She's a lawyer and she's like,
to your own meetup?
Yeah, she's like, you cannot go to this.
They've gathered together to celebrate you.
Yeah.
But if anything bad happens, it would all be on me, apparently.
Oh, if anything bad happens to them.
Yes.
I thought she was worried about your safety.
No,
okay.
no.
She doesn't care about you.
I've met up with a couple people by chance where it's like, hey, I'm in Austin. I know you live here. Let's hang out. And that's always been really fun. But no, I've not been allowed to go to the meetups.
Yeah, you don't want to make them sign releases or anything.
Right,
before.
exactly.
Okay, yeah.
And do you think they're similar to you in personality?
Most of the time, no, but I am a freak weirdo. So like, well, can you imagine 100 of me in a server all at once?
Maybe.
But there are certain people where I'm just like, oh my gosh, I envy how normal you are. Like there's a guy in there named Casey who's just like such a normal, well-rounded person where I'm just like, to be a normal person online is such a delight. Like you see that so infrequently, at least from my perspective, where I'm just like, look at all my normal online friends that are just like not freaking out about crazy stuff. And it's just like, let's just talk about mayonnaise today.
Yeah.
Well, when you say that you're a weird freak, what does that mean? I mean, other than sending foot pics out.
Yeah. Like the things that I care about are bizarre, and like the things that send me out into spirals, nobody should care about. A lot of the things that I post on my second channel, Internet Shaquille, is just like ruminating on those sorts of thoughts where it's like, oh, Pokimane came out with a new type of cookie and people are upset about it. And I can't believe that the narrative is going this way. Even though I don't have any stake in the game, I don't care about what conclusion you come to. I just hope that the path to that conclusion is one that's informed by good thinking. It's just like, oh, this is an insane person.
I didn't think you would have posted a video about the Pokimane Mina drama.
Right. And I did.
Okay, well, fortunately, we're the same type of weird because similarly to you, what matters to me are principles. People thinking about things the right way. Like, regardless of your conclusion of the situation, at least consider XYZ is kind of what I'm hearing the point of that video was.
Yeah. And I remember when you emailed me asking if I wanted to sign up for Karat and I said, can we get on a call? My first question to you was something extremely bizarre. I don't remember the exact phrasing, but it was like, oh, you're issuing credit cards where the effective credit score is based on your followership. Don't you think that's bizarre? And you're like, yeah, it's very wacky, isn't it? It's like, wait a minute.
I remember you basically were like, so yes, I emailed you, be like, hey, like we're trying to build financial products for creators. Here's a cool new credit card product. It takes into account your social following. And I felt like the implied question you were really asking is like, you are either incredibly stupid or is this a scam? Which of these is true? And I was kind of just like, yeah, it might be a bad idea. And I fully acknowledge this, but I still want to try.
Right.
And we had such a lovely conversation about this. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I asked you a question about like, don't you feel as though owning a credit card is an effective tax on the unbanked? And you're like, yes. Like,
Oh, totally.
oh, I
Oh,
might
yeah.
be,
No,
I might be
100%.
signing up for this card.
Credit cards 100% are a tax on a bank. So similarly to you, I have a lot of obsessions. This is one of them. For those of you who don't know, every time you pay with a credit card, the store pays a credit card processing fee to accept that card. And the thinking is you're going to spend more at this business because you're using a credit card than carry on cash. So credit cards take on risk. The store needs to pay a fee because they're getting more business. Now, stores increase their prices to make up for that fee, which means if you're paying with cash or debit card, you're paying the slightly increased prices, which credit card people are also paying, but they get rewards back. As a debit card holder, you get nothing. It's like a regressive tax on people who are lower income.
You don't even get purchase protection or anything else.
Yeah, it's super fucked up.
Yeah.
And there's basically 3 possible responses to this. One is nihilism, where you just laugh at the absurdity of life and you're like, yeah, I don't know what to do. Life's a joke. The second is trying to rechange the entire system. And the third, which is what I ended up deciding to do, acknowledging the absurd nature of it, deciding I can't change the system yet. So, well, if this is the way the game is played, at least let people know so they can play the game as well, while acknowledging that it is a up game.
That's actually really similar to the Mina commentary that I had, which is like, oh, so what you're saying is that the entire system is rigged and all purchases run through this filter of moral hazard. Yes, maybe, but let's put that out of our mind for now. So,
It's like, yes, it is bad.
I think we
table
think
that.
about this in a similar way. I think we probably think a lot of the same freakish thoughts.
Have you ever taken those personality tests? I think the most popular one is Myers-Briggs, but I think that's pseudoscience. I'd say the most scientifically rigorous one is the Big Five.
Yeah.
It measures your personality across 5 traits: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism.
Oh,
So how open you are, how conscientious you are, how extroverted you are, how agreeable, and how neurotic.
very.
I was gonna hazard a guess that you and I are both higher on the neurotic scale.
Definitely.
Because we think about things.
I think so too.
I think, Quinn, you're a little bit more chill.
I don't think I'm very neurotic at all.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's what I
it's
mean
the
by normal
balance.
guys. Where I was like, I meet a normal guy in my life. I'm like, bless you.
Just a well-adjusted
Yeah,
person who
yeah.
doesn't hyperfixate and
having
worry.
a sandwich. But no, it doesn't. I don't do that and think, I should try to think less about.
Yeah.
these
Okay.
neurotic
You
thoughts.
don't worry that you're worrying, or you don't even
really.
consider
He's
it
like,
worry.
not
really
until
not.
this
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
And now you've got a group of, so $3,000 a month in Patreon. How many members is that?
I don't know. I'm so sorry.
You
I don't
don't know?
I know so few of my own figures.
Okay,
I don't
well,
even have
it
my
has
phone
to
on
be
me, so I
about
can't check.
1,000, right? On that, like,
I would
'cause-
hope so. Yeah.
because
What-
your tiers
what's
are
the
what,
membership?
3, 5, 8.
3, 6, and 9. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so let's say
369.
somewhere between 500 to 1,000.
Okay.
So you've now found a cohort of 500 to 1,000 parasocial Shaquilles
Yeah.
Yeah.
who, if they do not think similarly to you, at least admire and appreciate it. That is really cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in my Discord server disagree with me a lot, rightfully. We had a huge debate last night about bean cookery. Yeah, I posted something like, yeah, I don't like to overcook them, so I slow cook them. And everybody's like, no, we all use an Instant Pot. I was like, you're not
Yeah.
worried about overcooking? They're like, no, it's literally never been a problem. And it's like, I got completely dogpiled on for having the inferior bean opinion.
Yeah, I'm on the Instant Pot
Yeah.
team for sure.
I'm super
You got
not-
all day.
Yeah.
You work from home though. You're a creator. You got tons of time to cook those beans.
Right. And it did really fundamentally change how I'm going to look at beans. I'm going to buy some. I ordered some today and they're going to
Yeah.
arrive and I'm going to try to do some Instant Pot cookery and we'll see.
Yeah. So you're so deep. You're deeply tied in this community, and that
Yes.
feels like a big reason why they're so engaged, right?
And in
Because
that
you
instance,
care.
they're better than me and they taught me something.
Yeah.
And so it's all very collaborative.
Yeah, and that's the main. That I guess is the main benefit of your Patreon. That's like what you try to deliver.
You get him.
You get him. You get unfiltered access.
The way I
to you.
set it up, the tier names are more text, more videos, and more access. So
Okay.
But Patreon just launched in you can have the ability to like give free trials. So
Mhm.
now you can get a 7-day free trial into the Discord to be like, I'm not sure if I'm going to pay $9 for this. And so far, 7 out of 8, because somebody just joined like 2 days ago, have stuck around. So
It's like you're gonna get to argue with Victor about beans.
There is a pinned
Gonna call you a mean
infographic that
name.
somebody made where it's like the timeline of a salt cellar user, and it's just like, oh, I'm so happy to be here. And then by the end, they're just like, Shaq is so stupid. He doesn't know anything. And they're just like all gang up on me. So yeah.
Wait, sorry, they're called salt cellars?
Cellarites, saltines.
Okay.
It hasn't been
It's a
decided
big
upon
divide
yet. Yeah.
within the community.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you start this? Because clearly you've got this passion devoted parasocial semi-cult following now, but how does it begin?
When I was big into that phrase passive income, I listened to a podcast called Smart Passive Income with Pat Flynn.
I know Pat. He's a friend, client, and angel investor in us, actually.
Very nice.
Yeah.
He had an interview about somebody who's like a big Patreon representative or like lover of Patreon. And he's like, the number one thing that people get tripped up on is like, what makes me so worthy of asking people for money? And what you have to drill into your head is that you're not asking people for money. You're just giving them a way to do so. And so when I heard that, I signed up for Patreon. That's why I have such a short URL. It's just patreon.com/Shaq, and that's 4 characters.
One of the very first.
Yeah. And so I signed up for it. I was like, I'm just going to wait. I was like big into posting Vines at the time. Like, I'm not going to monetize Vine by being like, oh, you should, join my, I don't even know.
Literally, it's like 50% of the Vine clip is
Yeah.
you selling your Patreon.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And so there came a time where I was like, you know what? It might be time to do like a big YouTube Patreon tie-in. I made like a big trailer for it. I had just listened to This Is Marketing
Wow.
by Seth Godin. I used a clip of his audiobook with my own footage behind it. I made this like huge trailer where I'm like, this perfectly exemplifies what I'm trying to do without being too serious.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's how it started.
It's very impressive. I feel like you're very educated on the business aspect. Like you read business books, you listen to business podcasts, but you don't want to scale. I think that is truly beautiful.
Oh. Or psycho.
Yeah, or psycho.
Yeah, no, you're
you
like,
know,
I've
I mean,
learned the ways. Do I want to use them myself? A little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I think Seth Godin is very much like the anti-Gary Vee. Like, I think those are
Yeah.
the 2
Mhm.
poles of the spectrum. And so it's like, whereas one end of the spectrum might be like, oh, I have a business. I should hustle. I should get as much money as I can while I can. And the other side where I am is just like, wow, hot dog, I did it. And now I get to like float in the pool, raise my child. Like this is
Yeah.
everything everybody says that they'll do if they ever like strike it rich or make it big. And I'm doing it for real.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I get to sit down and somebody tells me like, you made $150,000. I'm like, great.
$250,000
$250,000 of revenue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if it is of value, I can go through like how all that money trickles down to me.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
So there is my LLC's checking account. That's the main hub. That's where all income goes.
Yep.
Once every 2 weeks, that pays me like a $2,500 paycheck with
Mhm.
taxes taken out. And that's my personal checking. That's the only account that I spend money out of as my own self.
So 5,000. So 2,500. You said twice a month. So 5,000 a month.
Right.
Yeah.
And then 650 of that is auto deposited from my personal banking to a shared banking that me and my wife set up. That way all of our bills come out of that and we always have enough. And if there's ever a surplus, we can do something fun. And also none of us is worried about like, did you buy those new shoes? Then there's the much more complicated business side, which is $20,000 per year is getting taken out of my paycheck to go into a solo 401k. Basically, it's like filling up buckets. Do I have the high yield savings account full? If yes, then invest some into Barkley and buy some new products. And if I already have products, then put some in Wise, which is what I use for like international payments. And that gets like 4.5% APY.
Wow.
And then if I have left over from that, then I can like buy a new camera or something. So it's very much like a trickle down where all I know is my own personal self. And then at the end of the year, when somebody's like, you made this much money, I'm like, okay, good.
This is automated?
Yes.
You just get to live your life. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
the system's working. As long as you're getting like, above X thousand views per video, you're like, all the mechanisms are going to work and I'm going to be making
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
So I'm in this little bucket, my own personal bucket. I'm like, everything is good as long as I make at least $10,000 a month. Everything is fine. And then you come and tell me, hey, Karat Insights over here, your 18th bucket way down here is getting filled up. Great news. I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, good.
Fascinating. How much do you spend a month?
Very little. I was also very like
Yeah.
Mr. Money mustache head, bogle
Okay.
head.
Oh,
like-
so you were fired.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even though I haven't like hit my fire number where I like do a 4% withdrawal rate, I
Yeah.
definitely hit the point where I can coast for the rest of my
Mhm.
time here. And it's like everybody when they set up fire, when they're like, I'm gonna retire early and then I'm gonna play golf all day, I'm gonna do whatever. And then they do it and they're just like, actually, how about we do a 3% withdrawal rate? Well, how about we get extra conservative and do 2%? And Ramit Sethi, who wrote I Will Teach You to Be Rich,
Yes.
he had to write a follow-up book. I don't remember the title, where it's like, oh, all these people who like followed my instructions are now psycho about money and they're not I think it's called How to Live Your Rich Life. It's like, I have to teach people like, you're rich now. You're rich. Like, go enjoy your life. Go have fun. Like, don't be cutting your dryer sheets into quarters to save like 25 cents per laundry load. I don't want to get to that point where I'm just like neurotic about it.
Yeah.
That's kind of the hardest thing, right? Because one, yes, saving money is good. How, if you learn and inculcate enough in yourself to care so much, you don't go off the deep end. And two, then it's like, what do you do with all that free time? Like, I, at one point, also considered going FIRE. This was before I decided to do a venture-backed startup instead, which basically fucks your FIRE plans because you're like, either this could be $1 billion company or not.
Right.
And guess we'll find out. The big reason why I kept thinking to myself, say I actually have like $10 million or whatever, like, what do I do with my life? And I was like, I don't know.
That's the problem with peace, is that there's not a whole lot of excitement anymore.
Yeah.
And I thought about that when it's like over the Super Bowl, you get a bunch of like gambling promos for all these apps. And I signed up for like 3 of them at once. And like, oh, let's bet on who wins.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, like, you know, if I put down, how much money do I have to put down to get like a life-changing, like exciting, like, let's go buy something. It's like, I got to put $1,000 on a 4-to-1 bet to maybe get 4,000, and if I get 4,000, I'll like put it in the IRA or something. Like, there's just nothing to get excited about, and so even like the $5 free bets that they give you, I'm like, okay, I'll put it on this fun thing, and it's just like there's nothing to be excited about.
You're like, I can't wait to put my Super Bowl winnings into my retirement fund.
You're not the whale they were hoping for.
Right? Yeah. But truly, like, what could excite you? I guess your business doing well, because you parlayed your entire nest egg.
So the way I basically decided to figure this out was, I want to do the thing that I want to do, and the money happens to support that. So what I'm doing now is what I want to do. Like, I get to build cool products for creators. I get to hang with both of you. It sounds like you two, in a way, like, you're happy. Like, you have a wife, you just had a kid. Yeah. You have enough money, 250K gross, right? Where you've split into these buckets, it covers your needs. So I suppose the question is, one, do you have free time in that sort of, FIRE ideal life? And two, what do you do with it? What gives you meaning and fulfillment?
Well, now I have a kid, so that's all the free time.
Yeah.
But that was by design, so that's good.
Okay, so you knew you want to have a kid.
Right, yeah. And then for the like year and a half in between then, I was like, I bought a DJ deck. I learned how to DJ.
Okay.
I bought a pottery wheel. I did pottery. Yeah. And so it's like, oh my gosh, it's so much fun. Side quest, victory lap, whatever you want to call it. It's just so fulfilling to like learn how to be good at something from scratch all over again.
Do you worry about it running out though? Like your business?
Yeah, I think an appropriate amount. Like, especially seeing like, I think that's why the Mina cookie thing troubled me so much, because it's like, oh, the things that are existential threats to your image and your livelihood are so impossible to anticipate.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be me saying that talking about a bathroom in a certain way, and it could be, I don't know,
white labeling a cookie.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so I don't think you can ever live without the risk of something going horribly wrong. That being said, I've got a nice long runway where like, I've got probably 3 years worth of saved up money where like, if everything turns off overnight,
you could just do nothing and be fine.
Yeah, I'd probably be applying for like very cushy jobs so that I can just like be a consultant somewhere. But I certainly wouldn't be stressed immediately about the money. I'd be completely stressed about like, I can't believe these people are saying these things about me online and I have no way of having any recourse about it. But
so what I'm hearing, the biggest existential risk isn't necessarily financial, because you're like, hey, you have 3 years one way, you could go figure something else out. It's more, I mean, for those of you who don't know, Pokimane basically sold some white labeled cookies and the price was higher than people liked. And they also found out it was white labeled and they just like pseudo canceled her for a little bit. And I think she's fine now. Like these things always blow over. But in the moment, I'm sure that was like terrifyingly scary. What I'm hearing is like, that's what's terrifying. It's like the salt sellers rising up in rebellion and being like down with Shaquille.
With a new king,
The number one thing that I take away from all these lessons is like, the thing that I care about most is how you respond to criticism. And there has been really good criticism levied against a lot of my work. And for example, I think the worst video I ever made was about heat transfer. I talked about it in terms of momentum, which is physically impossible. Like heat doesn't have momentum. That's not how thermodynamics works.
Because there's no mass associated with it.
And so scientists comment and they're like, I see what you were going for, but technically, and I pinned that comment. It's like, that's, in retrospect, I wish I talked about it the way it really is instead of making like a metaphor for how heat works. Because in my life, I don't know, I'm thinking about like air exchange in my house and how air conditioner systems work. Like all of my best personal decisions are informed by the way things really are and not like heuristics for those things. And I wish that I extended that to the audience.
And I feel like also you being able to worry about heat transfer and these sorts of things comes from you being like cash rich too, right? And managing your money.
I was going to say also weirdly obsessive too.
Yeah, well, obviously that, but like the stress of the business goes away when you have 3 years of runway, right? Like that's
true.
That's huge for you.
I definitely, my wife is the one who's like, do you have any brand deals this month? I'm just like, no. Or I woke up this morning really mad at an email that I got. I was like, I think I'm going to cancel this brand deal. She's like, that's $5,000 that you're saying no to. I'm like, yeah, but.
Yeah, I've had those conversations with my girlfriend too, where I was like, I really don't want to do this. I really don't want to do it. And then it's like, yeah, well, don't do it, But it wasn't like, it was probably further than you would have gone. It was a mobile game, and it was like, I had agreed to it a long time ago, and then I checked the game out and I was like, oh my God.
See. Yeah.
It's one of my first 5 brand deals, but
Yeah. And I think on the other end of that spectrum is like my friends who have no vested interest in me becoming rich or anything. And it's just like, I remember eating nearby the park over here. And I was like, what if I brought my ice shaver and made a bunch of pucks of like really haute cuisine ice, like shaved ice, like lavender, like really crazy shaved ice, and just did it. And he's like, bro, how about you make a video and make like $5,000? I'm like, okay.
He was like, I don't want to hear about the pucks of ice anymore.
Yeah. And it's the same thing where it's just like, imagine you are a lawyer and you come home and you see your husband with the baby strapped to him with headphones on. I'm like, I'm working on a mix.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't believe the marketplace values his work is more valuable than mine.
Tied to that, but not directly related, are you represented?
No, I'm very happy about that, and I don't recommend anybody be represented.
Really?
Unless Karat is starting a new representation arm. In which case
You guys.
No, we are not
because we looked into it. It's actually really hard to do brand deals well on service of another creator, because it's all like human powered, reaching out to brands, negotiating, saying, hey, I can do this better than you can. And where that falls apart is when you try to scale it.
Right.
Because like, cool, you have like more clients, you're still the same person. Either you are now giving everybody less time, or you're hiring people who are not you under you. And both of those are hard. How do you make that decision to go independent?
I have never understood the value proposition of being managed at all. I think the number one thing that they talk about is like, we manage brand deals for you. But I mean, I worked in corporate America for 8 years at least. And so I know how to write an email and just be like, my rate is this. Are you able to give us a discount? For first time ad deals, I'm sorry, I don't do discounts ever. And it's just like, that's it. That's all the negotiation that is required.
Yeah.
And there's been a couple times where I had to work with a management company, not by signing a contract, but just working through them. And it's just worse because like the brand is coming back that they want to do this. Like, okay, let them know that I don't do that. Okay. Well, we let them know that. And then the brand, it's just like a game of telephone that you're doing. It's just worse. And then you must know in your heart of hearts that like these people who are representing you also have a vested interest in like getting you paid not that much, because then they can get more clients. I just truly don't get it. I've never been posed the value proposition in a way that makes it sound good.
Yeah. I think that a lot of new creators get tied into these sorts of things, and then they just don't understand how to manage it, right? And also setting rates, I think, is kind of interesting. But it seems like from your perspective, obviously, you're super established and you know how much you want to charge. You know how well your videos are going to do. But I think you can get tied into it early. Well, but actually, I do agree that there's like the value prop is very small.
How did you come up? You mentioned $5,000 is what you usually charge for a brand deal, right? Somewhere in that realm?
According to some of my contracts, because my wife reads all my contracts and lets me know, I'm not allowed to talk about most of the deals regarding what they paid. But
makes sense.
I am able to talk broadly.
Okay.
So a management company reached out to me for the very first time to get paid for an ad, and they said, $3,500, we'll give it to you. And I said, that sounds great to me because I don't know anything.
Yep.
Then I started getting more subscribers because I was like hot. I was on a roll. This was like right after the burrito video. And I said, hey guys, I have gotten like 200,000 more subscribers. I'd like to be raised to like 4,500. And they instantly were like, okay, fine. Because what I didn't know is that the number of views actually is what matters. Like how many people are watching the video. And I was foolishly thinking about subscribers. I think most people, even like high up in business,
totally,
they're giving Netflix shows to people with like 10 million subscribers who have like 2,000 views.
No, they have no idea what they're doing. Yeah.
So basically what I did, and if anybody out there is trying to figure out how to price their work, just keep going up until they're just like, no, we're not going to do that. And then leave it right below that. And luckily, I only do like a maximum of 2 ad reads per month. Like most of the time, I'm just aiming for 1 because I just want to be contractually obligated to post 1 video next month. And so when I got to the point where I had my 2 booked, and then I had 2 booked out for like 2 months in advance, and people were like, hey, let's buy an ad. I was like, okay, well, it's actually a little more than what it really is. And you just do that until the demand runs out. And then I brought rates down by about 30% recently, because I think just economically there hasn't been that much demand for attention and ad reads. And so right now, if you email me asking how much it is for an ad deal, I'd say $5,500.
Okay.
Wow.
Oh, you were way above. Okay. Wow.
Yes.
You were cooking for a
there
minute
was a
there.
time, and it was not too long after I quit, where I was like, oh my gosh, if I do let's say I do 3 ad reads a month at 7,000 each, I am rich, like just filthy rich. And that's another reason why I don't really I got to get 20,000, because the trajectory was this, and now it's not so much.
Yeah.
But everything's still fine.
That's the first time that I've heard you say something like that, where it's like, well, I could just do a little bit more work and make a little bit more
When
money.
that guy told me you should try to make 20,000 a
Yeah.
month.
You're like, man,
Yeah, it's
you're
like kind of
right.
the same thing. It's like, oh, I could have longer videos and do more AdSense. I get 2 more brand deals. I could sell more pottery or do it at scale. And each of those, you've sort of looked at it and you're like, actually, things are good where they are.
Right. I feel like being here was kind of a lose-lose scenario for me, because anybody who's watching me as a viewer is like, oh my gosh, he's so much richer than I ever imagined. And anybody who's watching these as a creator is like, that man is broke. He makes no money. Because I'm thinking about my compatriots who have more subscribers, more watch time, post twice a week. Each video is 13 minutes long, so they have 3 times as many ad reads. They command a higher ad rate. They're making $250,000 a month.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, it's hard for me to present this information in a way that is satisfying for anybody.
Well, Victor, if I'm being honest, there's a reason why you are the first creator we've ever done a financial deep dive on.
Okay.
And this is by design. And this is why. You're smart and you've built a real business, but you've chosen not to scale this into some corporate soulless machine. There's a lot of the soul still left in you. So you make $250,000 gross, half from your own pottery, 30% brand deals, 10% Patreon, 10% AdSense, because that's how you've chosen on principle how to live your life. Like that's an inspiration to anybody out there who's thinking can I make a living as a creator? How can I do so without becoming Mr. Beast?
Right.
Or needing to be Mr. Beast?
Right.
Or just posting content, have no idea how to make any money whatsoever.
Yeah. There is a very Godin-esque concept called smallest viable audience. It's very similar to minimum viable product, which you guys probably work with. And it's just what is the smallest group of people I can serve that will get me where I want to go and get them where I want them to go? And I am beyond that, and I don't have any desire to go much further.
Do you think you'll keep creating content forever?
No. I hope not. I hope I run out of things to say. What a cursed life if I don't.
You might not.
I mean, if you continue to learn, right? Why would you run out of things to say?
A lot of what I had to say subconsciously, I'd have to have a therapist validate this, was coming from a place of what will my legacy be? I have no child. How can I teach people to think in a way that I find valuable? And now that I have a child, it's just I can just funnel all of that to them. For now, I really like it, because if I die tomorrow, he could be like, oh, at least I know hours worth of stuff in terms of how to think and how to cook.
And so in a way now your YouTube catalog is bequeathed onto your son for him to watch and become the next Internet Shaquille.
Yeah, and I'm so glad I didn't make my money talking about, I don't know, comedy or something. It's just that was my dad. It's at least it's something retroactively somewhat noble, at least when you have the veil of
my dad was a thoughtful guy who cares weirdly a lot about beans, but that's okay, I guess.
He's a real dumbass regarding beans, but regarding everything else, he might have had a point.
Yeah.
When did you know you want to have a kid?
Probably forever. I think, why not?
Wow.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people my age and in my tax
How old are
bracket
you?
now, I'm 34 or
Oh,
33.
I'm 32.
Okay,
We're really
great.
close to each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of my friends are just well, I don't know. It sounds so stressful, and I don't know if I have enough money for it, and I don't know. It's I think as soon as you get to the point where you're just concerned about whether or not you're going to do a good job, you're beyond the point of doing a good job. And I think, I don't know, do I have some kind of responsibility to pass on my things that I have to my new Nepo baby? I guess it depends on how you look at it, but I don't know. I feel very motivated to pass on what I have fiscally and mentally.
I love that. As 34, 32-year-olds, and Quinn's the youngster here.
28.
You and I have both spent a good amount of time in corporate. What were you doing before deciding to go full-time 3 years ago or so?
I worked 5 years as an instructional designer at ASU, making online courses, and then 4 or 5 years at a private construction company just down the street from here. making instructional courses too for like safety and best practice and things like that.
Okay, this makes so much sense because I feel like you have this very comforting demeanor in your videos where you like walk people through things. I'm like, this is a style of a man who's used to teaching things to people.
That was actually like my sort of magnum opus after I quit my job and like did things full time, and I felt very satisfied with my cooking stuff. I made a big like 45-minute long video called How to Make an Internet Shaquille video. And so I just put all that out there, and it's like my instructional designer outlook on YouTube.
When did you first start YouTube?
I made my account in like 2006 because I was making like DVR. What are those little camcorders? DV camcorders? Digital video, I think.
You know better than me.
Yeah, they were like little hi8 tapes. And so we would always just, me and my friends would hoard these videos thinking, and we would put them on VHS tapes. And we thought one of these days we'll have everybody come over and like watch what we make. And then YouTube came out. And in 2006, I was like, oh, this is exactly what I've been waiting for. So I was posting a bunch of like dumb stuff of me as a child. That's all set to private now. And then like 2015 or 16 is when I started posting cooking stuff, just because that was... I was at a CrossFit gym at the time, and a lot of people wanted to talk about what I was eating as someone who cares about food, but also is like not, trying to cut or bulk or whatever. And so those were the conversations that I was having the most often. I thought I might as well just record these.
Are you like incredibly jacked? Because I will say,
no, look at me.
You look great. What do you
been
mean?
to many gyms myself, I've never had someone come up to me and please tell me what you're eating because I want to be more like you.
Just don't give the vibe.
No,
I don't.
No. It's more of like, it was a very small CrossFit gym. And so you talk to the same 10 people over and over, and they're like, oh, what do you like to do? Cook? Okay, well, what do you eat if you're avoiding this?
And you're like, oh, hey, let me share my knowledge via YouTube.
Right.
And it took off instantly?
No. I remember there was a video about potatoes that took off because someone posted it to Reddit.
Oh.
I was not monetized by then. And there's 3 requirements that you have to meet. It's like how many subscribers you have and how much watch time you have. And I didn't hit that watch time threshold until that one popped off.
Okay.
And so I'm watching all these numbers go up and all the money stay the same because I have to wait like 2 weeks for it to get approved. So I made no money off of that. But then I remember being on a plane and landing, and somebody was texting me like, oh, your other video's on Reddit. And that was the burrito video that got several million views, and that I got like $5,000 that month. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible.
What was this burrito video about, and why did it do so well?
I think the title, which was why are restaurant burritos so much better than homemade?
It's a good title.
I wasn't really thinking about smart titles back then, but in retrospect, it was a good one. I feel like the meta of cooking YouTube titles, there's like a top 5 that get used most often. And I feel like that one is still kind of chugging
you
along.
accidentally, authentically stumbled on one of the top 5 clickbait style of cooking titles.
Do you claim that? Were you the first?
Personally, yeah, but I wouldn't, chastise anybody for claiming it themselves.
Yeah.
But it is a really juicy idea, which is like somebody tried home cooking once and it didn't come out quite well. So what did they do that I didn't? And that was also my first experience with YouTube commenters because of how many, like thousands of times, it would just be THERE, they're not. Yeah. And I'm just like, like that was my first time understanding the idea that like some people go through their time on the internet thinking the text on the screen is talking to them. And they're just like, it's not actually. Next. It's like, oh, this is
like a personal attack.
Yeah.
Like, actually, my burritos are better than restaurant burritos, and how dare you, Internet Shaquille?
No, that was a really illuminating moment for me.
If you were to meet previous Internet Shaquille, just starting your corporate journey, what do you think he'd think of you now?
Dweeb.
Really? Wow. Wait, okay, let's go through each of these. Okay, first
No. I don't know. Like, I was working at that ASU job. Yeah. And the main reason I was making YouTube videos is because I was so bored. Like, we had truly nothing to do. And I became so cynical about like state-run education because of that. Because they paid us so much, $50,000 a year at the time. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm making $50,000 a year and I'm doing nothing. So I would like shoot videos on the weekends and then edit them at my desk because I had nothing to do.
Yeah.
So when that started making money, it's just like, maybe I should not work here anymore. But then I got a new job at the private company, and that was like a 50% pay increase. And so that stayed.
Oh, so that was like, you were now like a 75,000.
Yeah. A friend of mine who's self-made in business, entrepreneurship, tech guy, who like, it was after a friend's wedding. We're just hung over on the lawn of their house. And he's like, you really ought to just quit your job. And I gave him every reason why I don't want to. And he refuted that reason handily and perfectly.
So it's very logical.
Yeah, it was a very charitable thing that he did for me. Because it's like, well, there really was no reason where it's just like, well, what if I run out of money? He's like, you won't. You have 3 years worth of money. Or at the time, 1 or 2. Like, oh, well, what if I get canceled in the middle of it? Like, okay, you just get a new job. Like, he had an answer for every single thing.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, you might as well.
I had a very similar thought process myself. So I spent 7 years, 5 to 7 years working in corporate. And similarly, when I was thinking about doing my own thing, I had a dinner with a friend who's just like, why the fuck are you still there?
Right.
And I was like, no, I'm scared. Like, I'm going to fail. I'm going to put box under Highway 295. My parents will hate me. And very similarly, he was just like, okay, you're not going to end up homeless. You will be able to get other jobs. You also have money saved up. Who cares what your parents think? And it's weird how suddenly you wake up one day and you're just like, okay.
Yeah, it is effectively taking everything that you've built and parlaying it into something bigger. And I think as fiscally conservative, cautious people, it's a hard thing to get past. But some people are like, they'll ask me, when did you decide to make the leap, make the jump? And I was like, I brought the boat all the way up to the dock. I secured it. I put tape between the gap of the dock and the boat.
Yeah.
And I slowly walked onto the boat. Like, I did not take a leap. I was very conservative about my move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't regret doing it that way, but it is, I think, freakish in nature the way that I went about it.
It plays into the sustainability though, right?
Yeah, that's true.
'Cause a little bit about me, when I went full-time on content, I had no following. I just quit my job.
Right.
I just did it one day.
Did you have savings?
I had savings. Yeah, I had a
How
lot
long?
of savings. I had
A year?
probably about a year's worth
so
of money.
Similar
Yeah.
to
But I
us,
had no
yeah.
idea what I was doing. I had no foundation. I had not made a single cent. I didn't have a single subscriber on YouTube. I was like, I'm just going to quit my
Oh,
job
so you
and
hadn't,
figure
you
out
hadn't
something
made
new.
any videos either.
No, I hadn't made any videos.
Okay, that's definitely a little bit more of a jump than what
Yeah.
Victor
But
did.
Victor's path is so much more sustainable. You know what I mean? Like, it's so much smarter to do it that way, right? Because now you have this peace, right? You don't have to think about these things. You don't have to worry
That's
about
true.
it.
I don't
You
know
just
if
make what you
everybody-
want.
I'm not quite convinced that everybody values peace that
Yeah.
much. Definitely not as much as I do, but that much globally. Because it's
Yeah.
like, I think so much of that like hustle and grind type mentality it tickles a lot of people in a way that's just like, actually, I don't want peace. I kind of want to grind all day. And
Yeah.
that's fine.
There's various schools of thought, like, is there meaning in life inherently? What's your take on this?
Let's go back to talking about my income.
Dig deep.
Oh gosh. I hope my son isn't watching this one because I don't know. I don't know. I truly don't know. Is there meaning in life? I guess if you want there to be, and if you don't want there to be, then no. I really truly don't care about what conclusions other people come to. And
Yeah.
I think that paints me in this like, oh, you're such a centrist, or I don't know what other kind of pejoratives you can come up with, but it's like I'll frame it around having a baby. The number one thing that I came out of the baby having experience was there is truly no reason to tell anybody what to do. There's like millions upon millions exponentially choices that you can make. Like you can get down to telling the hospital that you want the doctor to wash their hands instead of using hand sanitizer because some people find that superior. Like that times infinity, literally. And if you apply that just to having a baby, I will never tell anybody what they should and shouldn't do. I can tell them what I did or what I didn't do much, but how I went about thinking about it. And I just really have no vested interest in other people thinking about things the way that I do, because there's just an infinite number of ways to look at everything. And that's just for one aspect of life. And so you spread that out across.
Yeah, orders of magnitude.
Right.
Do you believe you found your own personal meaning in life?
It's certainly the one that I set up for myself, which was to have a passive income before I have children so that I can focus on my child.
Yeah,
full-time.
which becomes your legacy in a way.
Yeah. I watched him try to roll over and then he did it. I was like, oh my gosh, what a champ. Like he
You're
did
like,
it. He rolled over.
Life goal accomplished,
Yeah.
fulfilled.
Yeah.
Achievement.
And so now he knows how to crawl. We're introducing solid food. I watched him like gnaw on his first ribeye bone. He loved it. And it's just like, wow, what a life well lived.
What a son.
And that's why, YouTube short comments drive me so crazy. It's just like, I want to just like sit him down and be like, is this a life well lived that you're
Yeah.
making for yourself? But again, it's not my responsibility to tell
No, I
people what they
subscribe
should
to the same philosophy. I don't actually think that there is inherent meaning in life, as in everyone should choose what it is for theirs and to make it their own.
I have a hard time believing that I have any discernible values that I can identify within myself. Values meaning things that don't change. Like it's not just things that you care about right now. It's like they don't change. And so like you think of, oh, what's that test that determines your political affiliation? Sapley values quiz. I think that's a good one where it asks you what your values are and it'll be like, agree with this statement. Violence is never good. And it's like, I think a lot of people go about that and like, oh, yes, violence is never good. And then I might be engaging with that question or their answer in an inaccurate way. It's another reason why I hate those quizzes so much. Like Myers-Briggs, I feel like you're reporting on them. You don't know yourself that well. I feel like they end up being just like
So
business,
theoretical. Yeah.
astrology for business.
I agree.
Yeah.
But basically, the part that I value the most is how many straightforward, broad, values-based questions it asks you to grapple with. And the only one that I felt, it's the only one that I remember for sure, is it is possible to have too much money, agree or disagree. And I put like strongly agree. But then I talked about this with my wife's parents. I was like, do you believe that it's possible to have too much money? And they said, no. And I'm just like, oh, okay, that's really good for informing the way that I think we talk about things. I'm not going to try to convince you to come to my side of things. But in terms of values that I have, I feel like there might be very few of them. I think that might be the case for a lot of people, and they just kind of go through the world thinking that there are more than there really are.
In terms of your content, which you have your main channel, which is focused on cooking. You have Internet Shaquille, which is focused on the various ruminations and obsessions you have.
And bathroom reviews.
Right. I really wanted to call it Ethernet Iverson, but I thought it was too far.
I like it, though.
That's actually really, oh gosh, that's clever. That's so good.
And ranked at the very bottom of that list, because I list everything, was TCP/IP/KD.
Yeah, no, that one's
that's a hard cut.
Very few people. There's very little overlap between like networking and NBA fans there.
Yeah.
I love that. What's the dream for your content? Do you want to continue making what you're making, or do you see that evolving?
My dream for my content is I get better at writing, and I can just get faster at writing. In a perfect world, I write a book instead of a video, and that way there are no comments.
Well, there are. They're just on Goodreads, and they're way more annoying.
Okay, dream rescinded.
No,
Still, I want to get better at writing. Like the tortilla video, I made a 2-part video about how to make corn tortillas, and it's like so difficult for me to untangle that concept that it took me like a year and a half to write that. So I have script ideas that are just sitting in the back burner for a really long time. One of them is titled, I think the government should mandate influencer status. And the conceit is like, back in the day where it was like, oh, everybody should work retail for a while because it teaches you about humanity. I'm like, everybody should be an influencer for like 15 minutes just to see how truly there is an infinite number of opinions to be had and broadcasted. That's about as far as I've gotten there.
Yeah.
But like certain videos are just sitting, waiting for me to untangle them. And it's just really difficult. And I wish I was better at writing sometimes.
Yeah, that's the peaceful way to look at it. I feel like you're just trying to love the work, right?
Yeah.
Versus some sort of outcome from it.
Say we have some parasocial salt sellers watching you right now.
I think they will be. They find everything I do. I just did a collaboration with a different brand of microwave cooking dish, and they found it instantly. It has like 300 views, and they found it. They're just like, hey, here's this collaboration that you did.
So this isn't even hypothetical because they will be watching this and they will be looking at us right now. To your salt sellers, what do you feel if you were to attend one of their salt cons? I don't know. Is that what they're called?
No, that is, yeah.
Yeah, it's
that
just
is
funny
exactly what they call
like
it. Yeah, that's exactly
All right,
why I
say
laughed.
you join one of them.
I just thought of SaltCon.
And say they said they wanted to follow your path in life. What would you tell them?
Well,
There are the do's and don'ts.
I would say define who your audience is. Like, who do you wish to serve? Regularly engage with whether or not you are serving them in the way that they wish to be served. Don't worry too much about the way that you look. I feel like a lot of people, they want the logo on their shirt to be like an outline of their face, or the glasses that they like to wear, and it's just like you just get locked into that forever. I keep growing and shaving this mustache. I like bleach my hair for a while because like I'm going to age. You're going to watch me change my appearance in real time. There are periods where I am like 15 pounds heavier and then lighter. It's like I don't want you to associate the work that I do with the way that I look, because that's one of the things that's guaranteed to not stick around. I don't know. Do whatever you want. Find a good support group. I wish I had a better, community of creators or influencers where I could just be like, hey, how do you guys feel about this thing that I feel like is kind of stinky or not very good, like bad practice? And it's just like, right now I have my people. Hello, Alejandro, Jigs, Ish, Casey, Saber. There's hundreds of you guys. Hello. Anybody with... if I didn't mention you, I did in spirit just now. I feel like we have this community where it's just like, something bad happens and it really drives me crazy. I'm just like, how do you guys feel about this? And a lot of times they can work with me and be like, you know what? It's actually not that serious. They talk me down from the ledge, or they amp me up where they're like, yeah, this is stupid. I'm thinking of some video that got me really upset recently about whether or not you should rest a steak after cooking. I was like, this is so disingenuous. And I wish that I could have those conversations with other creators where it's just like, I have a lot of questions regarding how much shame should be injected into the world of online creatorship. And maybe that's my Catholic upbringing, but I do feel as though there is an error, or there is an error of, okay, but he got his bag though. One of the things driving me crazy right now is some guys going viral for deliberately mispronouncing tzatziki wrong, where he's like, oh, they put on some tzatzaya sauce. And people are like, he said what? But everybody wins in that scenario. This is a long answer. Everybody wins in that scenario because the people who are dumbfounded get to be dumbfounded and post about that on Twitter. The people who know that it's done on purpose get to be like, he got his bag though, and he does this every time, and you suckers fall for it. And the guy making it gets to be like, I'm rich. And so I wish there was more discussion in our field about what is and is not acceptable, because right now, he got his bag though is the number one way of looking at, I think, anything.
Right, because the justification.
Right. And it's hard to argue with that when, nobody's getting pushback from other creators. Because it's sort of like, I don't know what it's like to live in LA. I imagine you're not allowed to talk badly about any movies, because if you're in the industry, it's just like, well, I can't talk about the squeakquel to Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yeah, because they could be anywhere. They could be listening.
Yeah, and then
could be your big break.
Yeah, I could never be the DP on their job because he worked on the squeakquel, and so it's just like I feel bound up. Like there's no way to have any outlet for this sort of thought unless you go onto their comments and like publicly like, I don't agree with this, and it's like, that guy's a hater. And like if you Google Internet Shaquille, I think one of the top 5, and I think it's like result 4 and 5 are just like, why is this guy so mean to like other creators? Like, I want to be able to ask these questions about like, should this be allowed? Do you feel as though it's appropriate to call certain practices? And this is cooking. Like, this is such a low stakes.
Yeah.
I feel for anybody who has to like get involved with political thought or commerce, finance, any of these like actual controversial topics, Godspeed to you if it's trying to anchor this back to the original question, which is, this is Sellerites want to start their own videos. I definitely have lost that thread. Some of the people in my Discord server have gone on to start making their own videos, and I do help them. We have like a plugs and promo channel.
I understand your point, though. You're almost like, hey, for those of you who are going to be creators, or even you just looking at the creator space in general, how can you offer thoughtful critiques regarding, as creators, what you can be putting out? Like, you can put out whatever and get your bag, but maybe what do you want to be putting out?
Yeah.
And how can we hold ourselves to that higher standard is hard.
Right. I feel like I'm a very critical person. I think everybody in my life understands that. When my wife is asking me why we should change, like we're picking the color of the house, and I'll say like, this is too warm of a green, and she'll be just like, you're overly critical. Like, that applies to everything in my life. But I wish the large group generally of influencers were open to being more critical more often.
I love that.
But then somebody's going to comment that's like such a typical thing for a hater to do.
That's gonna be the comment right on this video.
Yeah. Well, I watched your interview with
Scumbag
Dad, and
Career hater.
He feels this ire that I feel every day, where it's just like, how are people falling for this? How do the people in my echelon not shame other people for taking advantage of these situations? How is the system so rotten all the way through?
Yeah.
Like every level down that this stuff proliferates. And then I remember like, I don't want to be a career hater, and I just kind of had to let some of it go. But if I could snap my finger and make things different, that would be the thing that I changed about.
As you were talking, I was literally thinking about Scumbag Dad.
No, I watched his interview. I'm just like, I feel your pain so much, but at the same time, I'm glad I don't feel it as strongly as you.
It's endless. He doesn't even feel like he's criticizing particular people anymore. He's like fighting the entire content ecosystem.
Yeah, my April Fool's Day videos are based on trends that I notice. And it's at the point now where anytime I post, people are like, oh, this is so XYZ coded. And it's like an influencer I've never heard about. And I look him up like, oh my gosh, that guy's insane. Like,
the guy who's creating this is a parody. This is not meant as a personal attack.
Right. Yeah. In the same way that I was talking about values, where people don't have as principled of thought as I think most people think they do. It's very easy to go about the world where it's just like, guy participating in thing, fine, guy criticizing thing, bad. And it's just like, if you really just like sit with the uncomfortable nature of how difficult all this stuff is to figure out, I find it to be very fun and rewarding, but I understand that most people don't and would rely on heuristics to just be like, well, this guy said that it's a good thing, and I'm just going to listen to his podcast and listen to his take. And
it's hard.
So it's hard to end this.
No. I mean, it's hard to think for ourselves. It's easier just to borrow takes from other people that lack nuance in the certain way that you're applying or thinking through them. And I think that's why people react to you as a hater, because it feels as if you're saying these thoughts and opinions that people are like, oh, cool, like here's a take. Like, let me just figure out how do I copy and paste this like every situation that comes along. Whereas I think your point's more like, be thoughtful.
Yeah, I think that presents itself in my work as well. Like a lot of people in the cooking space present recipes, and I'm trying to say, like, here are some ways to think about food if you are trying to make a certain type of dish. And in a way that is very dissatisfying for people who are like, just tell me the recipe.
Yeah.
But for the people who benefit from it, I think they really like that. And I'm happy to
Yeah, I saw an interview where somebody asked you a question like, hey, how do you feel if someone went and made Mexican food, but they weren't Mexican? And you gave this like really thoughtful answer that was basically neither like approving nor condemning.
Yeah.
It was not like a yes or a no. You're like, well, on like the one hand, food is food and everyone should be able to celebrate it. And like you growing up, it's not like, you know, you were a huge foodie, only eating Mexican food. And if they want to celebrate it, great. On the other hand, like, are they depriving an opportunity of somebody who actually is Mexican to go and do this? And it's a real like thoughtful take that was not a soundbite.
Right. And I think that's good for if you want to think, and it's bad for if you want to get sound bites.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think of Rick Bayless, who's like really good at Mexican cooking, really respectful in the space.
You mentioned him, by the way, in the other interview too. You're internally consistent.
Okay. Well, it's like, you know, I think he should be able to and willing to receive any criticism levied against him, including you are doing culinary appropriation, you are taking jobs away from people who might be better suited to it. And I would be more interested in what his response to that criticism was. I think he'd probably handle it pretty well, but that is typically what I value more than the actual criticism itself.
What are you most concerned about in the content space right now?
I think my biggest concern is that attitude of, oh, he got his bag though. Ignoring that, I think it's not necessarily a problem, but something that isn't talked about in a targeted way. And that's the reason why I want to make that video about the government should mandate influencer status. There are an infinite number of opinions. And when I say that, many people are going to hear that and think, yeah, of course. But they don't understand that I really, really mean infinite. Like I make a video about what mayonnaise is, and there are responses that you would never, ever believe. Like I made one about mayonnaise versus Miracle Whip, and somebody commented, you know, I've been eating hot dogs my whole life. I don't care about that organic BS, FJB. And I was like,
what? His first FJB into Google.
Yeah. Okay, so I am reverse engineering this, and I understand. Okay, this person sees my comparison of Miracle Whip versus mayonnaise as real versus fake. And as a lifelong hot dog eater, he doesn't care about that, whether it's Miracle Whip versus mayonnaise or organic versus conventionally grown. And also, Joe Biden is to blame for this.
Oh, yeah.
So,
you forgot about the hot dog people and also.
Yes. It's like, there's really, and I really mean this, like an infinite number of opinions. And you truly have no idea what that means until you put a message out there that gets picked up by a broad audience. And that's why shorts are, I think, uniquely good at revealing that, because that gets shown to a lot of people who don't know your whole shtick.
Makes me think of two things. One, I'm actually afraid now to put out shorts because of the context in which I know I will be attacked and personally feel sad about. The second, I remember there's a short story from this author on the internet who used to go by the name Slate Star Codex. And he put together a short story sci-fi on, hey, like if humanity were to invent the most devastating psychological attack possible, what would that look like? And it was an AI that would like go through people's opinions on a topic in a certain area and just like spit out a statement that half the people looking at it would find like totally, yeah, that makes so much sense. Like, is this thing even working? Everybody knows this is true until they find out someone else is like, what the fuck is this?
Right.
And the whole point of the story was they developed this machine and they thought it literally wasn't working because it kept printing out statements that they thought were just literally common sense. Like, it's not these are supposed to be divisive, until some of these started leaking out and they found out there are people for whom this is the most offensive thing ever.
Right.
And it just wasn't even in the heads of the people who created it to consider, like what I consider to be like just foundational knowledge is not.
Yeah. So I think to circle it back around and answer your actual question, like what is the biggest problem or what's the biggest issue facing us, it's that audiences are largely unwilling to engage with differing opinions in a way that is outside of this guy wrong, this guy right, bad versus good. And what ends up happening is you glom on to an influencer or a podcaster or whatever. It's like every time something happened, Will Smith slaps Kiss Ross at the friggin' Oscars. And it's like, this guy said it was bad. I think it's bad. Like and you just do that every week over and over again. It's like, he always has the best opinions. And it's just like, you just do that for years. And then one day, like, they have an opinion that you don't like, and you're just like, oh, I used to love this guy, and it sucks. And you just keep going round and round until you like can stick to one person as like your Superman, where it's just like he's got all the right opinions. And I really like the way that he goes about spreading his message online. And I think people feel that for me a lot of times, and that is a big responsibility to carry. Don't. I'm a very flawed person. I don't have the same opinions as you. I disagree with you probably on most things, just because I disagree with most people. Like, I'm a psycho person who thinks about things in psycho ways. I think the one video I ever unpublished from my second channel was like me not liking the Barbie movie. I was like, everybody loves the Barbie movie. I don't get it. And a lot of the responses were like, oh, you don't understand. This thing that you have a problem with is a feature, not a bug. Like, that's how people play with Barbies. I was like, you've changed my mind on this. I understand. Thank you very much. I deleted it. I understand now. And it's just like, I think what you should do, according to how the internet works now, is like dig your heels in and be like, I'm going to be actually the Barbie hating guy now.
Yeah.
Because so many people are the ex guy for everything, where it's just like, I'm actually the guy who loves, I don't know. I hate it when they put a girl in movies. That's the thing that whenever they put a girl in a movie, I go online and I talk about how I hate that. Like, you just do that over and over again. And I think you can do that for cultural issues, political issues, all the way down to like food and makeup, to be like, I'm actually the person who goes online and tells you that like you should be rubbing slug, whatever that is, juice, slug slime on your face. It's like, I'm the slug slime girl. I remember this. Like in high school, there was a banana girl where she's like, all I eat is bananas. Yeah. Especially in like the nutrition world, it's just like, I'm the guy who eats 300 grams of protein every day. Like, that's my whole thing.
Or like the liver king, who ended up being totally fraudulent, whose whole thing is like, I'm jacked and I eat raw livers. And like, that's your shtick. You're now the liver king. Now you go make millions of dollars selling your liver. Yeah, like if people can glom onto you as like the Superman, as the golden boy, or whatever it is, it's like, even if your entire conceit being I eat liver and I'm natty and I'm buff and I'm jacked, even if it's proven wrong, it's like, okay, actually I've reconsidered things and I am the same guy, but in a different way. People are like, welcome back, Liver King. We always do it. It actually ties to your previous point, where it's like, well, they got the bag. Like, the pursuit of money ends up becoming a justification in itself. Literally, people are like, some people, the Liver King, are like, you know what? He made a lot of money.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Right.
And that somehow absolves him of all the previous deception lines. He still has a following.
Right.
Yeah, he does. He's back.
Yeah.
Better than ever.
It's like,
you're talking to a career liver king.
It's
I'm a liver boy.
In a way, these 2 points you're saying somewhat tied together. Your first point's almost like, keep in mind just like the vast array of opinions on the internet, and how easy it is as a creator to try and just become, I am this guy, to help seek out individuals who parasocially are looking for views that align with theirs, is sort of filtering through disagree. This guy I agree with. And now that guy, nor stay consistent, is the guy for all these things. Someone might come along one day and be like, this is terrible, but like, I guess he got his bag.
Yeah. And I also don't want to make it seem as though I'm just nihilistically going around the world where it's like, what's my opinion on this? Who cares? I like, too cool to have opinions.
Yeah.
But I think the way that I like to look at these sorts of things is, are they a net positive or a net negative on the people they wish to serve? And it's like, that thing about the steak resting that drove me so crazy, I feel as though putting that information was a net negative on the cooking community. Even though it elucidated some really good scientific data, I think it was positioned in a way that I think people who are not that good at cooking will be worse off summarizing the content of the video in the way that they seemingly did. And I think when it comes to like those tough, hairy issues that it's like, oh, well, people don't have any nuance these days. It's like, okay, we can have all the nuance you want, but at least if you want to come to a conclusion, it should be like, all things considered, are they a net negative or a net positive?
Did it need to be cooking content?
I'm glad that it was. I don't think so. I think making the second channel was illustrative of how much I could talk about anything.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, I don't like the Barbie movie. And thank God it's like I picked a vertical that's relatively non-controversial. Like the last big controversy in the food space was like Bon Appetit shutting down its video arm because they were being mistreated. And it's like that. The nastiest thing that happens in food is like, you stole my recipe, which I think people, that's another thing with infinite number of opinions. But in terms of ownership of recipes, it's at least legally not something that you have to worry about.
It's a very nice niche, I will say.
Yeah.
It's sustainable.
It's like I have my life as the job, and then I have the YouTube as the fun part. And I came to a more satisfying conclusion to the question that you had, which is, what would you say to somebody who's trying to make a YouTube channel? And that is, I think most people who are trying to put stuff out there online feel as though the market is more saturated than it really is, because if you watch a lot of food or Pokemon content, you're just like, well, there's already somebody talking about this versus that. And it's just like, there's no reason for another person. But every person adds their own bias and worldview and thought process in a way that, like, if, I don't know, let's just say every American, when they turn 30 years old, has to make a 10 video long series of YouTube videos about their life so far. It's not like the first year everybody would be like, all right, everybody said anything to say about that. It's like, even if you take everybody in the world and make them talk about the same thing, there will be standout stars who do things in a notable, remarkable way. And so I've had people come up to me where they're just like, I would love to talk about food, but it's just like, I feel like I'm stealing the Babish camera angle, the Shaq editing style, and this guy's recipes. It's like the conglomeration of all those is what makes your thing special. And so know that there is room for you and whatever you have to say. Regardless of what you have to say, I think there is room for your message.
What do you think of AI? One could argue based on its training, it too is just learning and picking up little bits from other people. And
this is actually one of the first videos that I made on the Internet Shaquille YouTube channel, because I feel as though this is the perfect conglomeration of people not wanting to engage with the topic in a way other than AI bad, AI good. I had a commenter on one of my Patreon posts. I started doing like a free Friday newsletter, and one of them was about a video, and they didn't like how the thumbnail looked like it was AI generated. I don't think it was, but one of their comments was like, I would never listen to a guy who makes AI thumbnails, who uses AI thumbnails. It's like, okay, understand that there are people who will really write you off if you have a good opinion about it or a bad opinion about it. People are talking about AI in a way that is disingenuous, both as consumers and producers. I come from the design school. All my friends are designers. They're all working on how to put AI in their products because their bosses are like, AI is hot, we got to put it in everything. I use Shopify, and it's like, oh, you're writing an email, click the sparkle icon and we'll write it for you. It's not good, but it's just everybody feels on the business side like they have to implement it. And then at the same time, I'm in the design school, so I know a lot of artists. On the artist side are like, we must resist this as hard as possible. And so my opinions are multifaceted, take at least 15 minutes to explain, and you can watch those thoughts on an Internet Shaquille video called What People Get Wrong When They Talk About AI Art or something like that.
Check out Internet Shaquille's videos. Check out Extranet Shaquille. I really wish it called it Extranet Iverson or TCP IP.
TCP IPKD.
And check out also, because we've spoken so much about it, Barkley.
Yeah, I made a website called internetshaquille.com that just has all my links there. It's a glorified link tree, but that's where everything is.
I love it. Thanks so much for making time.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That was fun.